And it often feels like there is so much we have to overcome to this day. And if you're like me, a lot of the talking points we hear from the men's rights movement can sound like an excuse for sexism or thinly veiled desires to return to societal structures that are
never promise crazy a baby.
Things are going to start happening to me now.
You've done all the reading. You're a scholar, you're a professor. You've done all the reading. You've done the intellectual heavy lifting.
More or less, he shouldn't die.
You wouldn't know a fact if it begged you all night long.
Want to give the wrong impression, because I am very high.
Fucking ran up behind him with a hatchet. Smash, smash, smash.
Yeah. Care. I'm a libertarian. What I'm getting is,
did you vote for Joe Jorgensen or Trump?
Who?
Joe Jorgensen. That was the perfect answer. Thank you. That was...
Oh boy, it's Friday afternoon. LPR is on. Welcome everybody. This is Tyler Yonke. Are we just calling it LPR? Maybe. And then you have to guess what that means. And anyway, welcome everybody to the show. It is time to get going. What are we going to do today? Well, I thought we would, first of all, start. Let's add this in here. Both wrong. Andrew Wilsom went on with Dave Smith. I'm not going to, look, who are these people? I didn't know much about, or anything really about Andrew. I know quite a bit about Dave Smith. Dave Smith and Andrew, I think, had a debate a while ago about religious stuff and libertarianism, maybe. I did not really check it out in too much depth at all, actually. So I was actually interested to have this one, and it was, see here, 2 hours that they had a show. And I don't know if it was simulcast on Andrew's show or what, but 2 hours. And this Andrew guy, I guess he's on the whatever podcast. I don't go down watch that because it's silly. I mean, he may be a smart guy, and the first 50 minutes, hour basically, is about kind of women and how they're horrible, and he talks about that. Fine. My point on all that is, and I'll say it from my perspective, he says, basically just women are trash now. You don't even understand what it is, Dave. Could be. I have a 19-year-old and a 21-year-old. They are nothing like that. Also, I've got a wife. I've got nieces and nephews, and quite a few of them, and they're getting married. And none of them are like what he's describing. And why is that? One, they would never go on a show like him, so he's getting inundated. And by the way, I could be completely wrong on some of this. And I'm not going to get into any of the debate that they had there. 50 minutes in, they start talking about family law stuff, and both Dave is wrong, both Andrew are wrong, and then they're right about things. So I thought I would just play that section, and we will talk about it, and I will break some things down that I think are important. But one thing I want to say about these horrible women that go on the whatever podcast. Yeah, you're dealing. It's like when you watch everything about kids nowadays, Palestine or Israel is all tainted because we focus on what happens at Harvard or some of these other colleges. Who fucking cares? This guy's in that cesspool all the time. I get it. But out in the kind of the real world where my kids are, and I think I am, it's not necessarily like that. And maybe that's somewhat of a white pill. Maybe that's just my hope. But I also think there's an important part, and we've talked about this a few times, which is there's an important thing about peer pressure, positive peer pressure that often can come from family and friends, and that's important. And so if you can make something of that and push on from there, and that, I think this is play part in the rest of the world, or the other things that we have going on as well. I will play you this little nugget here because they go on. This is after our section. Then they go and talk about some more of this stuff. First of all, Loads of Honey says, yo, what's up? Finally found a stream while I'm not at work. Yeah, and Lincoln says, hey, welcome everybody. Don't forget to like, subscribe, make sure you're subscribed so you get notifications. Once again, try to do these on Friday afternoon, usually at this time, 3:30 Pacific or 6:30 Eastern, and whatever your time zone is relative there. But also, if there's legal stuff coming up, hurry and play the clips. Hurry up, play the clips, Dad. Okay, I'm going to play this clip, but Jose, mellow out. I'm actually going to watch along with this. I wanted to play this because it's the libertarian stuff that I'm not going to get involved in, but they get involved in this stuff. I'm only going to talk about the libertarian stuff, the family law stuff, and I will get to it right away. But first, let me just play this. It's about a minute.
Yeah, that's like kind of my criticism, though, is that, yeah, sure. The rich industrialists bought the government and made their own government because they had consolidated power. Sure. I just think that like a libertarian in our kind of hypothetical libertarian land, when I read Ayn Rand, for instance, so Ayn Rand sees this problem, right? She sees the problem. She goes, okay, wait a second. what inside the John Galt world, John Galt.
Whoops. Let's keep going.
Industrialists. And he gets all the other rich industrialists to go make a brand new fuck you land, right? Fuck you. You vultures can all eat yourselves, okay? We're going to take all of the doers, and all of you takers are left here to just be vultures amongst yourselves. I'm taking everything, and I'm getting out of here with all the rich industrialists. And they go start a new nation, essentially, right? With all of the rich industrialists. The kind of interesting parallel here, though, is that she saw the problem of what happens if the rich industrialist instead just co-opts the fucking government. They just become the government. And under her, the only way she could get it to work under her kind of libertarian ideology was if the rich industrialists became the good guys. They became the good guys and said, fuck you to the government and made fuck you land. That was the only way she could square that. And I always thought that was a serious problem in this kind of like Ayn Randian philosophy.
Yeah. Okay, so maybe I'm not an Ayn Randian, okay, as Dave goes to push back on him a little bit of saying, hey, I'm not an Ayn Randian. When I had Dave on the show, and I just wanted to say this because Andrew says a lot of good things, but he says them with utmost confidence, 100% confidence, often wrong, and that's fine. Dave does that many times himself. I just want you to know, I don't know that's someone had to be first of all, Ayn Rand is not a libertarian, never has been. She hated that, and there's vast differences between the two of them. Yes, there's definitely problems. Who should be the good guys? So I think I get the idea that this guy, I don't know a ton about him, that he's kind of that paleo style. So perhaps he's kind of where the Pete is, where you need to be in power, and if once you're in power, you can enforce it. Okay, well, the industrialists are in power. So who was? And by the way, it wasn't the industrialists that were in power. It was they were the workers. They were the doers. They weren't the lazy ones, which were the ones that were taking over the government. I don't know. Okay, let's get to this actual little part here. We talk about family law stuff. I think I have some ammo to push back against some of this. My goal here, and I'll say this, there we go. My goal here a lot of times is to try to get men into a position where they are not victims in family court. That's what I do. I'm a family law attorney, just so you know. So they're not victims in family court, and they can take care of themselves. And a lot of the times, and kind of where this mindset goes here between these two, maybe not even Andrew as much as Dave professes this. It's the system's rigged against you. Good luck, buddy. Well, that's not true. And it depends what state you're in. We've talked about this. And when you have that mindset, you're going to be, there's too many men out there that then they just fall into this, and then they're not going to do anything about it. You can always do something about it. And, I didn't even know what that acronym means. Thanks, Jose. Isn't this just Israel? Yes, it is. They like to say fuck you to anyone who isn't Jewish. Okay. Let's go here. But the 56 minute mark, they finally get into some interesting stuff here. Well, it was all interesting. I encourage you to go watch this with Dave. The Crucible, I think it's Andrew's podcast or show or whatever. Decent guy. It chain smokes the whole episode, so good for him.
Look at everything in liberal progressive media. That dynamic.
I'm doing it at 1.25. I'm almost not wanting to, but we're going to anyway.
Under assault. Women are in charge of the household, not men. It's my two dads, my two moms, or my polygamous marriage, or any number of different family dynamics which are pushed, except that one.
Okay, so that's actually a good question to ask, where we could transition a little bit into kind of the stuff we were debating about the other day. But I do think that a huge part of that, a reason why that's under assault, is because I do think, look, in the environment that we're in today, where we live under, not just a modern centralized nation state, but the biggest, most powerful one in the history of the world, I do think that big government always sees family and religion and community as their rivals. And I don't think it's a coincidence that as power in Washington, D.C. has ballooned to the highest point that it's ever existed, the highest point any government power has ever existed, that there's been a systemic attack on the family. And I think there's a real connection there. Do you not?
I do, but let me give a slight amount of pushback here.
Sure.
Let us back up a little bit. Let me ask you this question. If 75% of divorces are initiated by women, I don't think it's quite that high, but let's just assume it is. Okay. It's the vast majority of divorces are initiated by women. Why do you think that is?
Okay. So I would say that there's again, with any question like that, there's many reasons.
Sure.
But a huge portion of a huge percentage of that is that all of the laws are stacked in women's advantages.
Okay. Let's stop here. It means I love you so much, old man. Oh, thank you, Jose. I appreciate that. Let's stop here because maybe I don't know. I believe that there are stats about who files for divorce. Okay. And there's a stupid book here, The Respondent, where he talks about, because he said the respondent, that means the woman filed first. She was the petitioner and you are put against it if you are the respondent. And this guy's in California. So I know what I'm talking. No, that's not true. Okay. And I'm going to get to, he didn't say percentage divorce is, okay? He said, what is the percentage of women who filed for divorce? Now, I will just say from my personal perspective, I even asked my wife, why, if that's the case, why do you think that is? She had some ideas. Mine is, because I see this constantly, just happened this week a few times, which is they're going to get divorced. The dude is just, he's busy. Maybe he does. I had a guy last week. He's been, they've been filed for divorce and legging this thing on for 6 years. They're only married 5. Okay. Why? And he's like, I just wanted to leg on longer. And I'm pushing him. Well, because he had misunderstandings of what would happen if he does go to trial, because he didn't want to give up his house to the wife, as an example. Well, she wasn't part of the, and we'll get into all the issues pertaining to this. That one specifically was he bought the house prior to marriage. He didn't want to have to give her half of the house. Well, he doesn't, because it's data marriage through data separation. Anything acquired during that time, assets, debts, or community property prior to that is separate property, except for gifts, inheritance during marriage. Those are separate property as well. So the point is, people do it for all kinds of reasons. Women are more likely to file simply because they want to get things done. I've had so many cases where the guy is the one that's cheating on her. The guy is the one that wants the divorce. He's moved out. She doesn't want the divorce. But you know what? His actions are what they are, so she's going to file. So I don't know that the filing itself, and I hardly have too many where they don't actually both want to get divorced. It's how this process comes along. Now, Dave says the laws are stacked against men. This is a common, what I think is a misnomer. I don't believe it's necessarily true. It depends. Their whole logic that the conversation goes from this point forward is that the husband is the one that works and the wife is a stay-at-home mom. That's kind of the whole percent. They don't even think that there's a possibility of any other way, at least in their conversations, which is not really the truth. There's a lot of people that work. And so, I played that clip at the beginning, never promise crazy a baby. That is exactly some thought that needs to go into this. So why are the women filing for divorce? I don't know. Okay. But it doesn't mean that they are the ones that are nefarious and trying to get one over. I just resolved the case the other day. They've been married 42 years. The wife filed for divorce. She was the petitioner. She didn't want to get divorced, but he was living with someone else and she needed to get her, her property and whatnot. Yes, her property too. So that needed to happen. So she had to file for divorce to get this shit moving along. And there's where we are. So I don't know necessarily. Maybe that's the point. Hey, she had to get her property. Well, okay. You're married 42 years. If you're married 42 years and he is the worker and he wants you to stay at home with the kids all the time, should she deserve part of the property? I mean, these guys would say probably not. He's getting bilked out and the laws are against him. I find that the laws are somewhat equitable. And by the way, I'm just going to put this out here to begin with right at the top, which is this may not be the situation you want it to be, but we are living in this reality. That's what I try to say all the time. Here is the reality of the situation. What are you going to do to resolve it? And Andrew has some solutions, at least. So I give him that. But anyway, let's keep going here.
And that look, there's this kind of like natural order where, typically speaking, women, like when those chicks you'll be arguing with will talk about the wage gap, and then you or one of the other guys on the show will explain to them that it's like, have you ever even looked into the wage gap? Do you know what that is? It's like, okay, well, here's why. One of the big reasons why there's a wage gap is because like you guys have the babies. And typically speaking, after you have the babies, you have to nurse the babies and you have to take care of the babies, and someone's got to stay with the babies. And it tends to make more sense for the men to be the breadwinners and to be the ones working, especially since we don't even know what to do with the freaking babies when they're newborns, and you guys have it all genetically encoded into you. And so the natural order, or the natural market order, if you want to look at it that way, would be that the man has this really big bargaining chip. That is like, hey, if you were to leave me, your life is going to be way, way harder than if you stayed with me. But then the government comes in.
Well, see, that's a sticking.
I want to say real quick here. So I get it. And that's the ideal. That's the Chad way to go about it, right? So you've got some dynamics to play here, which is she may at some point get tired of this life or want to move on, or she gets her crazy friends and she makes some other decisions. That's the reality that you've put yourself into, right? You've been married 42 years or whatever it is. You've told her she doesn't need to work. I'm going to take care of you. I'm going to take care of you. And then you go and find a thing on the side. Okay. Maybe she's like, well, fuck you. I want to. And this is what the crazy part here about these guys is. You've got to understand why divorces sometimes happen. Okay. Sometimes it's the woman. We're going to go through some stats here and find out what kind of person should you be getting a bartender? Should you be getting a Republican, a conservative, maybe a liberal? Who is more likely to get divorced? And we'll go break down some of those stats because I think it is somebody. What you drinking today, Tyler? Well, there's two things here, folks. One is Athletic Brewing. This is a non-alcoholic IPA. That's going to be, because I can't go too much. The other one is a Knee Deep Brewing. This is a local one. It's called the Yankee Jim's. This is their IPA. Just a little 12 ounce here. So I'm trying to keep it mellow. I haven't been drinking this week really. So trying to, I got to lose weight, folks. That's what it is. Okay, let's keep going here. Oops. Sometimes you see.
Point. That's why I wanted to kind of get your outlook.
Well, just to be clear, because my argument is that the law comes in and says that actually, no, you're entitled to half of what he has, if not more, that we're going to give you all the services in the world, that we're going to have the entire system is
done via contract
in favor of the woman.
But it's done via a contract. It's done.
I want to say, no, it's not in favor of the woman. Okay. I push back on that. It depends on which state you are. And maybe I'll just make this point right here, right now, which is custody. And because they get so many things wrong in this as well. Custody. So there are many states out there have a presumption of 50-50 custody. Maybe I'll go to those stats. I brought those up time and time again, that there are multiple states out there that in their state constitution and in their statutes talk about a presumption for 50-50 custody right off the bat. Okay. And many states don't want to do it. And by the way, which states are more likely to have 50-50 custody when you're talking about like, hey, I really want men's rights and all this? It's your Republican states that say, fuck you, they don't want it, okay? And a lot of this is tied into the Title 4D of the Social Security Act, which gives almost 60 cents on the dollar to Department of Child Support Services to the state for any means of collecting support, okay? So the money is tied in with this, so they do put the laws against you at times, dads, but many of them are 50-50 custody presumptions. So do I want to go over it? Alabama doesn't have that. Pending in Alabama right now. Failed in Alaska. Went through in Arizona. Pending in Arkansas. Connecticut failed. Veto in Florida by Rick Scott. Died in the Senate in Georgia. Veto in Florida. Pending in Hawaii. Okay. Failed in Illinois. Pending in Illinois now. Indiana. Pending. Failed in Iowa, they've been trying it multiple times. Failed in Kansas, pending in Kansas. Kentucky signed. There you go. Maine failed. Maryland, pending. Massachusetts failed. It's almost a lot of these states. Pending in Minnesota, failed in Missouri, signed into law in Missouri finally. Failed a bunch in Missouri and then signed in. Pending in New Hampshire, pending in New York, failed. I mean, it goes on and on. Passed in Oregon, passed in California. So I don't know if this is a complete and precise thing, but you know, there you go. So let's keep going with this.
With a non-coercive contract, so for instance, right now you can have all of the same perks that you get from being married without being married, right? You can go and in fact, you can go in your backyard tomorrow and you can say, I declare myself married. Put on a ring, your girl puts on the ring. And I mean, who the fuck is anybody to say that they're not, right? Who is anybody to say that they're not? In libertarian land, you really couldn't, right? You couldn't really say who's sure. Married, who's not. They just kind of declare it. They're willingly signing these things, willingly signing these contracts. So explain this to me. And this is the sticking point, right? Big government or small government.
By the way, I would just say, first of all, that can you get all the rights without getting married in a state that doesn't have, and we'll get into this common law marriage stuff. Can you have all the rights that you normally would? No, that's not going to happen. ERISA, as a matter of fact, it's federal laws that dictates retirement accounts. You can only be splitting those if you are actually married. That's a provision you have if you want to split something like that if it's a prenuptial agreement, as a matter of fact, you can only do it once you get married, then sign it in, because only married people can do those kind of things. Social Security benefits. He talks later on about health insurance. Maybe if you're a domestic partner, now that they have gay marriage, you can do something like that, but it's marriage. So a lot of the domestic partnership things have gone away because legalizing gay marriage. So you do need, and this is where I say, like, yes, he pushes here about libertarian world and you do this. Well, okay, that's great and everything, that I could be a full libertarian in my personal life, but if it's going to fuck me over in my family at some point, then I'm sorry. Let's say you want to adopt a kid. So you want to adopt your wife's kids. Their dad is. You're going to do stepdad. Okay, you got to be a stepdad in California at least to be able to do the adoption. So let's keep going.
Anything in between. If women can adopt contracts and understand that they can adopt contracts that fucking men will sign. They will sign those contracts in order to get access to what the women have. How's that going to solve that problem? Even without the large government or small government? That's what I don't get.
Sure. So I think that, well, first of all, it's not completely true what you're saying. I mean, there are in many states, not every state, but in many states, there are like these common law marriage rules where even if you just live with a chick and have kids with her, even if you didn't sign any contract, you're basically still on the hook for as if you married her. That does vary state to state.
Not only does it vary, but common law in no way, shape, or form is the same type of reflection that you would get only in like I think 3 states, as though you went and got an actual contractual marriage. There is some things that can happen around common law in some of the states that can be kind of brutal, but there's many states where it's not even a thing, right? It's not even a big problem. So let's assume you're in one of those states and it still has the same divorce rate. It's still high.
Right, but it's not genuinely a contractual agreement. I mean, what happened is that there is this cultural institution called marriage, which men have been and women have been engaging in for, from the beginning of civilization.
Totally agree.
And all of the sudden, the rules have switched now. And it's not as if like men, when they get married, sign a contract that says, hey, if this doesn't work out, you get 50% of what I own and all of the rules will be rigged against me and all of that. All you do is sign a marriage certificate. You may know or you may not know that the rules are rigged against you, but this is not in any meaningful sense like a contract that you entered into.
Sure it is. I mean, you're entering into this contract, which is easier to break than a cell phone contract, right? It's
okay. Sorry there, and we'll break in here a little bit. If it was easier to break than a cell phone contract, I would be a cell phone attorney and not a divorce attorney. I don't know. I mean, maybe he's just off the cuff saying things. You can go, and by the way, I'm dealing here mostly with California, but it's very much like this throughout the U.S., which is we have a statutory requirement that you can't, from the time you file and serve the other person, you can't actually get the divorce for 6 months. Okay. Now, if it was so easy, I wouldn't be doing the job I do and making money off of that because it would be easy to just break this contract. You can go and you can file for divorce. Getting that accomplished has a lot of entanglements to it. So that's not necessarily the truth there. I mean, it just doesn't make sense. Now, and I think, by the way, the fact that you have to go through this actually helps somewhat limiting divorce. Just had friends over here. They decided to just move in together. Been in it for a few years, and she's done. She just moves out. Well, they never got married. Well, that's that's even easier to do. So I would encourage marriage, no matter if it's legal or not.
Easier to break than a cell phone contract.
Yeah, but the difference also
what
is
is the
you didn't put it
incentive?
with a cell phone? You sign a contract that has like
in
all
the
of
marriage,
deals.
you're signing a contract too. You're signing off on the marriage license and the contractual obligations that come with that.
Okay, in some abstract sense. What I mean is that the standard for say
No, not in an abstract sense. You literally have fiduciary duties to each other once you engage in marriage. If you go to the county recorder's office, they're going to have you read a few little pamphlets about this as an example. Now, maybe your pastor and you're going through this, they should have you read some things and maybe do a little, maybe you need to work a little harder at picking your mate than you do at picking your cell phone. Okay, because glad you guys both brought that up. You're wrong about the ease of it, but you should have a lot more foresight and understanding of what the fuck you're getting yourself into. And on that regard, I think Andrew is actually perfectly fine. Okay, some here. If you don't know your children, you can't be raising them. This seems racist. Because men don't share the power they have. I'm not sure what that was related to. Dwayne says, I'm late. We was watching the Baldwin. Yeah, evidently the prosecutors withheld evidence, and so they were dropping it with prejudice or to get an agreement there. Men have the money to get some. They have to ask for it or demand it. Okay. Alec Baldwin gets to walk because crook prosecutor. Yep, there's a lot of those. Men will abandon the family. Men do abandon the family. And that is a shame. And by the way, if you want to do that, fuck you. That's a horrible thing to do to kids. And there's a lot of men out there that don't. I think it is, you don't have to praise men for being fathers. Being a father is just what you do. And to not be a shitty one doesn't deserve praise. To be an exceptional one, I guess, does. But then, that's why you can easily look at, Nick Rekieta as an example and mock him for it. Corner office. I don't know what that, maybe I missed up what it was about.
Like signing a cell phone contract is that all of the all of the fine print has to be written out on a piece of paper. Now, to your point, no one actually reads that stuff. Fair enough. But I'm just saying none of that's even on a piece of paper for marriage. This is something that politicians just changed, and everyone's kind of embarking on this same old system of what has always been considered marriage. And now all of the chips are.
There's so much information now about what happens to men during divorces. There's so much overwhelming information. You can't get away from it if you wanted to. They're still signing the contracts because they want access to these chicks. So what I'm asking, I guess, in a non-abstract way, if we were to have libertarian land, right? And by the way, this wasn't me, to be completely honest. One of the chatters that I have, though, said it was only 9 states have common law practice. I knew it was small, but I didn't know how small. So anyway,
we'll get to that. I think it's only 8. Maybe we'll talk about that
inside of libertarian land, where you're free to make contractual agreements of any kind, absent coercion, right? What the fuck would actually stop women from drafting this similar style, or vulturous lawyers from drafting up one of these vulture-like contracts, and men who are puppy-eyed and want that poon sign them? I mean, it seems like they do it now, right?
So I get your point, but I think the counter to this, right, is that this is often the critique of libertarianism that you get, right, is that you go like, well, in libertarian land, what would stop you from doing this? But of course, the question is always compare to what? So yes, perhaps in libertarian land, there could be some women who drew up really awful contracts, but at least in that situation, the man would get to read the contract, go, yo, this woman just wrote up this crazy contract for you. This would stand out as a little bit less than normal. Whereas compared to what we have today, it just happens by decree from politicians.
So then you know what we're left with?
Everybody, including, now, by the way, I think me and you both have probably, my guess is, not knowing you that well personally, but my assumption is me and you both have stronger marriages than that, and that wouldn't be the case. But Andrew, just think about it like this. Me and you have both signed those contracts.
How do you know?
Essentially we have. Yes, we are both married, right?
Yeah.
Both legally married. Yeah. So we've essentially agreed to what the rules of this jurisdiction are. By your definition, we've both signed these contracts.
Yeah, but I mean, you got prenup, right?
Whereas in libertarian land,
hang on, you got a prenup, right?
No.
What kind of libertarian doesn't get a prenup?
Okay. Ian says, I guess you speak for all situations for men. Yes, I do. No, I don't know if that was aimed towards me, but And maybe you're talking about this Andrew guy. No, I'm not speaking for any situations. What I'm speaking for are the circumstances that when you go through divorce and family law, about how those work here. And I'm trying to help massage some of this. Okay, let's take a look here. Here's the issue. And they're going to talk about common law marriage. Now, what is a common law marriage? There are some misunderstandings about it, but there's, I think, 8 or 9 states. He said 9, I think it was somewhere around there, that support this common law marriage. And I'm just reading it off of one of the legal dictionaries here. A law marriage is an informal marriage where couples do not have a marriage license, marriage ceremony, or marriage certificate. But if unmarried couples meet specific requirements according to state law, they are considered legally married. So they just didn't go through the process, but they still have to do some things. And by the way, if they decide that they were married and that's the case, the law has determined that, they actually have to go through the divorce process, file a petition and whatnot. So they're still under this auspice of divorce if you want to be separating property, and that's usually what the whole thing is. So only a handful of states have common law marriages. Few other states have limited common law marriage. What is the purpose of a common law marriage? If you have been in a long-term relationship but never filled out the paperwork to get officially married, you can still be entitled to reap the benefits of it. This is basically a loophole for lazy people. A piece of paper should not stand in your way. And by the way, misogyny laws, that's, and I think in the 1930s is what came, there was never a license, a marriage license necessary, and it was done specifically so the separate but after Plessy v. Ferguson, separate but equal, you can keep the blacks from marrying the whites. That's the whole process there. Boom, boom, boom. The benefits, the right to inherit when your spouse dies. That's a problem, right? He says you can get all the rights. Now you got to make a will. You can do this, but if it's not, even if you have kids, then it could be done by intestate succession. There's other problems you can have. So you need to be able to, that's one aspect of doing it. Spousal support, child support, divorce, social security benefits, ability to file a joint tax return. All of these are things that are reasons why you would get married, or say, hey, I'm actually got a common law marriage. Okay. I think with the social security benefits, what are you going to have to do? File for a common law marriage. And by the way, to actually get that done, you have to both have the intent of being married. And by the way, if you're engaged, it is not common law marriage because you are then intending to go through a ceremony. So this says you have to have both the mental capacity and intent. The capacity is always an issue. Intent that you to outwardly show that you are actually married, and then there's some other things that keep going. Okay, let's play some more of this here.
Because you're not really married if you get a prenup, dude. That's not like that's not. No, listen, man. Me and my wife are never breaking up, so it's nothing I have to worry about.
But what the hell is marriage then? Why would marriage? Why would you need any sort of contract for a marriage? Why would you even need to go to the state to get married?
Well, I'm not saying you need to go to the state to get married. I'm saying that marriage, to me, the definition of marriage is being all in.
But this is what we're going to do here. Studying European history, marriage licenses would be issued by the state. Yeah. By the church. Yes. Which I think, look, let's say we came into libertarian utopia or whatnot, and you didn't have marriage licenses anymore. How would they go about that? Well, churches, you can definitely do it that way. The problem is with the atheists now, you don't necessarily have that. But this gentleman's going to describe how that's not really the case. In Hawaii, technically not 50-50, but practically, yeah, I would understand that. An actual live, yes, yeah. I'm 46 away from 1,000, so people start getting me, give me some subscriptions here.
Yeah, that there is no what if we break up.
So there's no state
contingency plan.
Sure, state involved.
Well, sure. No, I mean, to the extent that the state might be involved, it might be because, say, there are certain laws that are written in where you can't get on the same health insurance, you can't be whatever the.
I don't know if Andrew just waffles between what chaos over here, where Bob Murphy would predict if you didn't have a state, or if he actually thinks this. Who is enforcing how do you get a contract enforced right now? Well, you take it to court, and it's state court. You can do private courts, of course, but mediation or whatnot. So a prenuptial agreement would still have to have the state involved because you're going to have it enforced, presumably.
You can do all that shit.
Well, it's okay, but regardless, that's not really the point I'm making. The point I'm making is that if me and you both are married by the state, like legally recognized by the state, we've both signed on to the contract that you're talking about. Whereas in libertarian land, I don't think if we were handed those contracts, we'd have been like, no.
But this is actually a weird.
I don't think our wives would have ever handed us those contracts.
Yeah, but this is a super weird position, though, right? So so let me explain.
Sure.
Okay, I believe that covenant marriage is legitimate marriage, and basically all other forms of marriage, I don't even recognize them as being legitimate. I think that they're just basically playing.
I don't have a problem with that, other than, okay, who cares? I mean, that's great for him. I recognize. I say you're not Jewish unless you're actually, religious. But does that matter? Does the census care what Tyler thinks? Or if you go to court and you're like, hey, Andrew said I'm not married because it wasn't a religious ceremony, they're going to say, okay, who cares? So it's nice to know his points of view, but once again, it really doesn't matter in this kind of stuff, right?
House, right? I don't even recognize them as being legitimate.
So we say like a Christian marriage or a marriage.
A covenant marriage, correct. Yeah, okay. Those are really the only ones that I'm even willing to recognize. Okay. Now, there's good arguments, I guess you could say, for there's people who are trying to live a reflective life like this who aren't Christians, and we should still recognize those marriages. I still struggle with recognizing them, though, if they're not covenant marriages, meaning you weren't married in the eyes of God. Because for me, it seems like there's no purpose to even getting married unless
is that just a point of clarification? Is that just like for Christianity or like Jewish marriages, Muslim marriages, or something like that?
I even have a hard time, depending on the context, recognizing those, because marriage to me has really specific criteria. So the criteria for marriage to me is that the man is the head of the marriage, because that is the reflection of Jesus Christ in the church, being the head of the church, and the woman is reflective of the body of the church, okay, which means that she submits to the man, and that is what that dynamic for marriage is. That's what marriage means in a Christian context, okay? So if you're not following that dynamic, it doesn't seem like it's real marriage to me. It seems like it's kind of phony baloney marriage, right? And so there's some marriages in some cultures that, I think I would struggle to recognize. Not saying I wouldn't. I'm just saying it would be a struggle to do so for me. Now, moving into this, if you were a secularist, if you were a person who didn't believe in God, or even if you were a person who did believe in God, why the fuck would you ever go and get a state marriage anyway? Why would you ever need to do that? Why wouldn't you just go get a covenant marriage, call yourself married, be done with it, right? Why would you, libertarian Dave, ever go to the fucking state and allow the state to marry you?
All right. A few reasons here. We can do estate planning, all kinds of other things that make it much easier for your life if something were to happen to you, just even passing away, but inheritance. You can do a trust. Now you can put other people in a trust as well. It's just, it's easier. Now I would just say, I get it. If you're libertarian, sure, that's the ideal, but we're not living there. So what are you going to do to make sure that just because my ideals are great, and then something happens to me and my kids are fucked in the future? Okay, Social Security. Once again, I just went through a lot of different issues that you can have. Now he's making some points here. Prenuptial. Okay, maybe that's the way we need to go. Let's take a look here at some. Stuart Tamana Hana said, in Hawaii in the past, common law marriage was so commonplace, they decided to not recognize them to coerce people to marry. Yeah, I get marriages. I'm married by the neighborhood shaman. Okay, that's my anti-Semitism. Tyler, that's anti-Semitism. Okay, could be. Repeal Obergefell. I don't have a problem with that. If you don't know, that's the gay marriage decision by SCOTUS. Lincoln says, I feel that they're arguing about a different reality than the one we live in. They each have the vague perception of divorce law, and they're arguing that instead of actual reality. You know that, and reality is warped. Lincoln, that is a great synopsis of this. And I think that's what frustrated me. And I'm trying to not get into some of the other things, but I think what Andrew wants to do there is his ultimate goal is to try to get Dave into, you're not actually being libertarian in your own life. That's his point. And Dave's trying to say, look, the government ruins families and da-da-da-da. They're both have points here, and that's why it's like you're both right, but yet now you're going to be arguing about some stupid shit that isn't the case. So I would never advise you if you have a family. And by the way, I would advise, let me just say this. Found my wife. I was divorced, okay? Shit happens. I have 2 kids. She has 2 kids. And my lease is running out. I'm going to move in with her. And so I say something to my sister, and my sister's like, why don't you get married? And then I'm like, yeah, why don't we get married? What? And then I go back and I'm like, what do I want to project to my kids, right? You get married and then you move in with each other. And we're going to look at statistics about people that live with each other are on average more likely to get divorced than those that don't, or that wait for marriage. So there's all these little and oddly, I moved in with my first wife about a month before our marriage date because it was convenient. Now that I think of it, well, that wasn't why though. Point is, we did the right thing for the kids, and now it's 12 years later, life's great. And you put this example. So I think it is important to show, at least outwardly, that you are down this path, because I think, he's talking about a covenant marriage, which means between you and God, you have this bond and you are outwardly showing everyone else that God has, sanctified this marriage. So what happens if she doesn't want to be a part of this anymore though, Andrew? Okay, let's keep going.
That makes no sense to me. That's like the most anti-libertarian thing I could ever think of, because you just said your criteria for marriage is we're all in. Hell yeah, you're all in. What the hell are you involving the state for? It sounds like that's giving her a way out, right?
I'm sorry, I'm sorry to keep interrupting, but I tell people this all the time. You may not want the state involved in your life, but as soon as you're going through divorce, the state is involved in your life. So his point makes a point there. Okay, let's not even have them involved in our life. Just do a prenup without this. I get it. Maybe that is the ultimate way to go. I personally believe, though, you get married in front of God, and if your church you're going to have your church do it, your pastor is likely going to say, we're going to get a marriage certificate. And so you're kind of screwed.
Giving her a way out that you wouldn't ordinarily have. So maybe she's not all the way in.
What? She's all the way in, I assure you.
I like this question. Common law marriage or common law divorce. Let's go right here to this. Proving a common law marriage depends on factual circumstances of each case. Well, the cohabitation requirement is straightforward. Establishing the other two requirements can be a challenge. To prove an agreement of marriage, I took this from Texas. And why? Because California is more straightforward. So I wanted to get a state that's not as advantageous to men, as an example, and does have common law. So California didn't have common law marriage. Texas did. To prove an agreement of marriage, Texas case law states that there must be evidence establishing a present, immediate, and permanent intent between the parties to have a marital relationship. An agreement to get married in the future is insufficient to establish an agreement of marriage. As such, if two people are engaged, they cannot be common law married. I thought that had a point there as well, but it didn't, which is if you've determined that you are actually common law married, you have to get legit divorced. So that's otherwise you can't get all the aspects you want. As a matter of fact, so you think about it, typically the way it's going to go is you're going to try to get some benefits or whatnot. So you need maybe the court to make some determinations if you're common law married. I don't do this here, but I'm just assuming so. Maybe they would issue that. But if that's the case, why don't you just get actual married, right? Just get actual married. If you need the benefits or there's some reason why you can't prove this. Now, there is the full faith and credit law of the U.S. Constitution, which means that one state will recognize the laws of another state. So, there's that as far as your common law in one state, you recognize it in the other. But you're going to have to put that forward and prove it. Now, if you do decide to get divorced and you're common law married, you're separating, you got to get divorced. That's just the whole thing. Squatter's law, loose. I don't know what that is, but yeah, glad to. Okay, let's keep going here.
But why?
Well, I'm just giving you the logic.
But why would no? But what's the logic? Why would she have a way out because we're legally married by the state, but not have a way out if we just said we were married?
Glad you brought that up, because your kind of criteria here was, well, look, Andrew, when the government interfered and fucked the whole thing up, which it did, I'm not disputing that. Okay, definitely fucked the whole thing up. It was going to be fucked up either way, but they helped fuck it up way faster.
True.
Your kind of criteria here is, but all those laws and all of that favors the women. All those laws favor the women. They favor them, right? Oh, okay, great. So they don't favor men. Right. So when you say, well, we're all in, right? We're all in because that's a real marriage. And if that's what the criteria of the state is for what a marriage is, then we need to do that. Well, actually, you're giving her the out by your own logic because all the laws conform to her and none of them are good for you. That's my point.
Yeah. Okay. But the counter that's not me giving her a way out. Certainly, but you're right that I'm giving her a more advantageous situation if she were to want to go out. But I don't care because I know she's not going anywhere.
Well, right. No, I understand. Listen, I'm not beating up.
Just to be clear here, I would sign a piece of paper tomorrow that goes, if my wife ever wants to leave me, she gets 1,000% of everything I own, and she gets because she's not going.
Holy shit. So you take whatever Dave has, and then you multiply it by 1,000, and then he owes her. So let's say he has an IRA, it's got $100,000 in it. He's got to multiply that. She gets that plus multiply it by 1,000 and she gets that in addition. That is insane. That's not good, Dave. That's not good.
Going anywhere because we're together forever. It doesn't matter. I'm just saying that as in my particular marriage, that doesn't matter. In general, if you put the incentives like that in front of society, then yes, you're going to get more women abusing that than you otherwise would.
Especially if they have narcissism, right?
Huh?
Especially if they're suffering from narcissism.
This is why I think Dave's put more effort into finding his wife and establishing his marriage than a lot of people do with their cell phone. That's the thing Andrew talked about earlier. You've got to do that, people. Like I said, I feel like I have a great marriage, but you know what? There's shit that goes down still. You've got to work constantly at it. And if it's important to you, which it should be, then, you know, the two of you will go to through life together, you know, as a team. But that, I mean, even teams have trouble.
Where they're told by all the women in society, hey, if your guy's getting a little fat and a little bit lazy, time to trade up, girl. Time to go. Girl power. Time to trade up, girl.
To be clear, and
by the way, Andrew is so correct there. And I think I see that with, you know, divorcees and their friends. Sometimes they want to bring them to court with them. That's always really a bad deal. And it doesn't, sometimes it can help, sometimes it can't. But you know, if your girlfriend's insisting she's single, she wants you single too. That's
I would sign that agreement with my wife because I know her and we're all in together.
Yeah, I get it.
I don't think enforcing that by law across a nation would be a healthy recipe for success.
Yeah,
Does that make sense?
Yeah, but I think. So I'm sorry, I got to say this, but I think that's a very gynocentric take from my position. So what makes it, I'll explain. What makes it a gynocentric take is I'm all in and she's all in, but I'm the one signing the piece of paper that says she gets 1,000% of everything. What is she signing?
She'd sign the same thing.
And this is in the abstract. I'm sure she would, right? The only reason I'm using you is because I'm trying to kind of articulate how I see things. And you're the example because you're right in front of me.
Sure.
So anyway, what I would say here is the risk, though, the entirety of the risk is yours to take here. Whereas you don't actually have to involve the state. And I think you as a libertarian would say, do not involve the state in your marriage because that's not what marriage is about. It has nothing to do with the material conditions that the state offers you as a bribe to sign a fucking contract so that she can take half your shit and your kids, right?
So to be clear, she could take the kids either way, legally speaking. That's not going to change. And that also is fucked up. But I'm just saying that's not changing whether you're married or not.
It's less likely if you have a marriage where she goes to the judge and says, well, I was a homemaker for 13 years and I was never properly compensated. And now it's time for me to get the kids.
No,
and he has to go to work.
More likely that she could get your wealth. I don't know if it's any more or less likely to get the kids. I think you're
No, it is. I'll explain how. It's more likely. So what happens is they say, I was Betty Crocker.
Dave, okay, let's just listen to this shit.
Okay, he went and worked every day. I sacrificed everything. I sacrificed my hopes, Your Honor, and my dreams and everything I could have been for this man. That's what I did. And he doesn't even want me to have shared. He won't give me full custody of the kids. And all he has to do is do the same thing he's been doing. But I'm the one who has to make the adjustment in life. I now have to go get a job. This is horrible on me. And they get awarded this so much, David, it will blow your fucking mind.
No, I'm not.
No, they don't. So this is what's crazy. And then Dave acquiesced. He first says, I don't think that's the case. And then Andrew says, no, that is the case. So here's the problem. I did some peripheral looking through multiple states. Some of those wanted to be shitty to men. And the standard for kids, we've talked about this, the standard for custody is the best interest of the child standard, okay? It's the way it is in California. I looked at many cases, many different states here, their case law, and you break it down. Here in California, you do not get to talk about financial issues, economic situations in relating to the best interest of the child. You can try to bring it in. The only time we're really even looking for it, or I've been even allowed to talk about it, is a situation they're just newly divorced. One guy's maybe staying with some buddies and he doesn't have a place for the kids. I've had other ones where the guy doesn't have a job and he's living in a car. It's not the fact that he doesn't have a job that he doesn't get to have the kids. It's the fact that he's living in a car. What are the circumstances for those kids? Now, are there circumstances, and by the way, this is Andrew, maybe it's him coming about this from stories that you hear of, horror stories of men's rights. Could be, right? Guy goes in there, maybe the wife, maybe they don't have attorneys and maybe she's making arguments about his finances and he doesn't get the kids and the judge doesn't make the decision based on the finances, but she made the arguments. Maybe they're both pro per, and pro per means neither one has an attorney. You see this, people say all kinds of crazy shit all the time. Maybe the judge doesn't, and I'm just taking it out here. The judge doesn't make the decision based on his job, but on other things. But he leaves and says, fucker made the decision because I don't have work. I don't have a job. You don't have your kids. Now you got to go and tell people why you don't have your kids. Maybe you make up stories. Maybe you feel that it's this way. You don't have an attorney. Maybe you do have an attorney. Maybe I can't tell you. It happens over and over. I just had this, went to court a few weeks ago, made all the arguments correctly, did whatever. We got what I thought was a great result. Now the client's upset and she's saying, we should have argued this. And I'm like, we literally argued that. That was the whole point. And the judge made a ruling in our favor. Anyway, it blows me away. Point is, what is she telling other people about this case? That to me is the problem. Okay, so best interest of the child standards. I think I have some things here. This is just different states. I've kind of looked at it. This is what best interest, and almost all states are very similar to this. This is for custody. The child's view. This is the things they take into account. Children's view should be given weight according to their age and maturity to avoid paternalism and discrimination. Okay. Child safety. Children should be protected from all forms of violence, injury, and abuse. Child's well-being. Policies should ensure children's development, including their physical, mental, emotional, access to education, access to play, and leisure. So once again, you can see how finances might come into it as kind of a peripheral. One party lives in Section 8 housing, the other one has nicer place, and there's gunshots and people are getting murdered all the time here. Maybe until you move and you get a better situation, we're going to say temporary custody goes to the parent that has the nicer house. That might have to do with it. Okay. Child's identity. While all children have universal needs, there are some needs that are specific to groups of children based on their race. Okay, that's maybe an economic issue. Family unity. Policies should seek to maintain family relationships, including extended family, where there is not an imminent threat to harm to the child. Okay, and what else do I have here? This is another one. Desires of the child. This is a different state. I think this is Texas. Emotional and physical needs of the child. Emotional and physical dangers of the child. Parental abilities of the person seeking custody. Programs available to assist the parties to promote the best interest of the child. Plans of the child made by person seeking custody or agency. Stability of the home or proposed placement. So once again, economics can come into it, right? But it's not going to be, his situation, his specific example was dad was the breadwinner. Therefore, dad has the money. Dad is the one with the money. And yet he's being discriminated against. As you can see here, I've had this multiple times. Person's like, hey, I want, 50-50. Right now I only have, 5% of the time. Okay, we're going to file a motion to do this. And I'm working through and I said, what does that custody look like to you? This is a problem with men all the time, which is they haven't, not all men, but almost all, which is they just say, I want 50% because that's what everyone tells them they should have. Fine. What does that look like? You know what your wife, ex-wife or baby mama, you know what her work schedule is. You know the kids, what their school is. So what does that look like for you? One guy's like, I want 50-50. I'm like, I bring this out to him. He's like, well, I'm a long haul truck driver. I'm like, so how often are you gone? He goes, I'm gone like a month at a time. I'm like, then it's not going to happen. You can't go, and by the way, you can't go into mediation and then to court saying, I just want 50-50. It's like, well, what does that look like? Show the court, show these people that you've thought about what this looks like. You know their schedule, you know the kid's schedule, because there's one county here where you don't ever get, so what happens? You file a motion for custody, you get to go to a hearing, and in between that, they send you to mediation. They send you in there with a social worker, the two parties, and then those two parties hash it out, and the person asks questions, the social worker, and tries to get an agreement. If you can't, they give recommendations to the court. Attorneys are not allowed in this process. We can put input. There's one county, though, if you're there in court, you go to court, and they do it right there, and then they go back to the courtroom. They give you a phone number you can call in and you can listen to the conversation. My client's in there and we've prepped him. I've gone through all this. We're ready to go. And she asks him, so he had 5 kids. What grade is, and she did them randomly. She didn't go from the bottom up. She just ran it. And he could not tell what grade they were in and what school they went to. It blew me away. Do you think he was the parent that they're like, this guy's on top of it, he's going to be making all the decisions, he's got their best interest in mind? No, that's a problem. And this is the problem I have with these two gentlemen, lovely, both of them, which is if you're, and actually it's Dave more than Andrew, which is putting the onus on the guy gets the bad shit. Yeah, sometimes guys got to step up. You want to be the man of the family, you want to take care of this, and this bitch left you, you better step up and do the right thing and get your ass prepared. Doesn't mean you have to get an attorney, but get your ass prepared to go to court if that's the situation. Prepare for litigation, and that does not always happen. Okay, let's finish off. Stability of the home or proposed placement. Once again, that can have financial things, but that you can be poor and stable, right? You have bitches coming in and out all the time. That's going to be a problem. Any excuse for the parents' acts or omissions. Okay, there you go. Acts of omissions. Okay, let's get back to these fine gentlemen.
Listen, it doesn't blow my mind. I know a lot of people who have been through this situation, and there's no question, like, especially in divorce court where, like,
it does blow my mind, Dave.
Everyone's a woman. Like, you go into everyone involved, including the judge, is a woman. I'm just saying that even if you were...
But isn't he's talking about gay marriage? I mean, by the way, I will tell you this, in my interpretation, there's oftentimes female judges, just like maybe black judges go worse on black, female judges that go worse on the women. They hate seeing this victim shit out there. That's not always the case, but I've had good luck actually with female judges. I just have a problem with judges.
Never legally married by the state, you're still going to have a very tough time if you're in a custody battle. But the point,
not with a prenup. You can get some prenups.
Even with prenup.
Do you know that 80? So James Sexton, he's a.
Okay, let's go back here because I think we just missed that.
Like, everyone's a woman. Like, you go into everyone involved, including the judge, is a woman. I'm just saying that even if you were never legally married by the state, you're still going to have a very tough time if you're in a custody battle. But the point,
not with a prenup. You can get some prenups.
Okay, so these guys are, and then you make a comment like that, and once again, we're just completely right. So what does a prenup do? You have the basic idea of a prenuptial agreement is that if in the case of you get married, and by the way, for a prenup to be legitimate, you have to get married. You can't just say, I've got a prenuptial agreement. Otherwise, it's just a contract between roommates. You can have those. But you are going to get married and they are effective upon marriage. So you get a prenuptial agreement. I do these as well. And what you typically are doing is rearranging the community property laws and separate property laws, but community property laws of your state for yourself. And what that really means is, I just described it previously a tad bit, which is date of marriage through date of separation. Typically anything you acquire during that time is considered community property. So all your paychecks, community property. You go get credit card debt, community property. Your grandparents die and they leave you a bunch of money, not community property because that's separate property. You buy a house, Those kind of things are community property. So your retirement that you acquire, community property. Which means at the end, the easy way to think about it is you liquidate all your community property and just sell it every bit, and then you split it 50-50. That would be the ideal way to do it, but you can't actually do that. So then we have to assign who gets what. Okay. Now, what we do with this is the typical prenuptial agreement, which is no spousal support if we get divorced. Oftentimes, all the paychecks are separate property. I do it like this. I'm like separate property for your paychecks, but you're putting it in a separate account. If you guys want something to be community, you actually have a joint account and you put it in that joint account, and then anything in there is determined as community. So we're actually reversing it, which is it's presumed to be separate property unless we specify it to be community property. Okay. Now, one thing you can't do with prenuptial agreements is what's called going against public policy. One of the little twings to that, which is no spousal support, but let's say during the marriage, the supported, your wife in my example, she becomes disabled. The court's going to say it's against public policy to not support her after this. Therefore, you would have to still possibly be paying her spousal support. What you can't do anytime is bargain away the ability to pay child support. You can make an agreement, as an example, to do custody, that it's going to be 50-50. Is that going to be held? No, because the court has jurisdiction until the kids are 18 and out of high school in most states to modify any kind of custody order, and almost always they're going to be temporary. So if you had an agreement, as an example, our kids are always going to be going to Christian school, and then you're no longer a Christian and you're a Muslim or something, and then you get divorced, is the court going to hold that presumption to you for your kids? No. Child support, same thing, no. So he's wrong about that. Prenuptial agreement, I know it's a joke, blah, 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 but we're going to dispel with some of the things. Dave's not buying it. You can see that, right?
Even with prenup.
Do you know that 80? So James Sexton, he's an attorney. He's a divorce attorney out of New York. A good friend of mine. I talk to him all the time. Great guy. He's written books.
Should talk to him just a little bit more.
On this very topic, on how to stay married and then kind of the legal in and outs, right? I think he said it's like 80% of prenuptial agreements are enforced to the letter. Almost all. Oh, the overwhelming.
And by the way, I would say, I don't know. The only thing I know about this Sexton dude is Kyle Matovic had him on his show. Okay. Now, Kyle, we like Kyle. Kyle's been on this show, perfectly fine. But what happened with that is Kyle then is talking about how this guy, and I, by the way, I haven't seen this myself, but I had like kind of an argument with Kyle on it, which is he said this guy says that, all divorce, 50% of divorces, 50% of marriages end in divorce. So maybe we should take a little look at some of these statistics. I don't know if that's actually what this James Sexton said. If it's the truth, and then our boy Andrew might want to actually take a little bit more time to filter this guy out. But here's some interesting things here. So this is a whole page here of, and by the way, I went through multiple studies and everything about statistics. Divorce rates were going down, marriage rates were going up. That's all positive in my estimation, even if you're including the government in this. So it says almost 50% of all marriages in the United States will end in divorce or separation. True. However, let's take a look at this. Researchers estimate 41% of all first marriages end in divorce. Okay, 41%. I've seen different statistics on that. That might be rising here. 60% of second marriages end in divorce. 73% of all third marriages end in divorce. That is the problem with the 50% stat, which is you're more likely, if you get married, you're more likely to stay married. And as you can see there, it says researchers estimate 50. Well, why don't we not estimate? And actually, I've seen it lower than that. I've seen it more closer to like 35%, but let's even say that's the case. That's a much different number than you saw with the 50%. So it does need to be extrapolated out, which is if you're getting married, like Dave's saying, I'm going to stay married. Yeah, likely you're going to stay married. And I think the problem is it's the gay agenda. Sorry to say it here. That really put this thing into disarray several years ago, which is they're trying to knock down the idea of marriage when they weren't able to get married themselves. And so you're always saying like 50%, oh, look, you straight people can't even stay married. Why do you care about this institution? It's not an institution that we need to save, but we want to be a part of it. Okay, which is a weird thing. I could be wrong about how this all came about. However, what's the interesting part there is that now they can get married, the gays, and they just want to be part of it too. I think they just wanted approval in the first place. But anyway, that's where we're at on those ones. Oops. How often divorces take? Every 42 seconds, there's one divorce in America. Okay, Jesus. Let's keep going here. There's some other interesting things. Medium duration of first marriages that ended divorce, about 8 years. Second marriages are close to that. People wait an average of 3 years after a divorce to remarry. Okay, that's probably solid. Who is getting divorced, when, and why? The average age of couple is, first divorce is 30 years old. 60% of all divorces, individuals age 25 to 39. Wives are the ones who first often file for divorce at 66% on average. Okay, that's a lot different than 80 that he said there. That figure has soared to, okay, well, it says nearly 75% in some years. Professions with the highest divorce rates. Here you go on picking a mate, not a cell phone. Dancers, 43%. These are your strippers. Really. Bartenders, 38.4%. Massage therapists, the magic fingers, 38.2%. Gaming cage workers, 34.6%. Gaming service workers, 31.3%. 27.5% 0.5 professions with the lowest divorce rates. Farmers, 7.60. That's the trad lifestyle. By the way, we got a cat recently. We have 3 dogs. We now have 10 chickens. What else do we have? We have a lizard somewhere around here. Podiatrist. Who knew it? People with foot fetish stay married. Clergy. Okay, that's good. Optometrists. That's because they can see so clearly. And agricultural engineers, 1.78%. Wow. So this is a crazy statistical thing here. The dancers, those bitches. For instance, what else do we have here? Divorce rate by ethnicity. Blacks and whites are very similar. Asians are not. Hispanics, they're just a little bit below that. Divorce rate in specific population segments. Same-sex statistics. I don't know if when do people divorce? We talked about that. Why do they divorce? Lack of commitment, argue too much, infidelity, 55%. Lack of commitment, 73%. I mean, look, I think lack of commitment just then is a BL catch-all, and then you have all these reasons. Then they do these others, and then they just blame it on that. Because if you're arguing too much, maybe you're not committed, right? Or infidelity. I mean, that's really a lack of commitment. Married too young, unrealistic expectations. That's the dancers. Those are go right into there. You expected her to be faithful. Lack of equality in the relationship, lack of preparation for marriage, domestic violence or abuse, 25%. Here we go. Education. High school dropouts are 13% more likely to get divorced. Individuals who have attended college have a 13% lower risk of divorce. Let's talk about the IQ problem. Those with below IQs are 50% more likely to be divorced than those with above IQs, okay? Political affiliation. Political affiliation and its impact on divorce. Conservatives are least likely to be divorced. Conservatives, 28%. Liberal, 37%. Moderate, 33%. That's almost a 10% difference there. So if you live in a red Republican state, you're 27% more likely to get divorced than if you live in a blue Democrat state. That's kind of interesting. So Republicans in a liberal state don't get divorced as much. That's interesting. Cohabitation. Here you go. If you lived with your partner before you got married, 60% of cohabitating couples will eventually marry. However, living together prior to marriage can increase divorce by as much as 40%. If you're a female serial cohabitator, whore, a woman who has lived with more than one partner before her first marriage, then you're 40% more likely to get divorced than women who have never done so. Wow. Where you met, if you met in high school, college, or grad school, you are 41% less likely to get divorced. Okay, cool. Other couples who met in bars, 24% more likely to get divorced than expected. That's that bartender and that dancer that you're finding there. Sexual history. Oh, here we go. This is going to be harmful to some of you. Women who lost their virginity as a teenager are more than twice as likely to get divorced in the first 5 years of marriage than women who waited until 18 or older. 2011 study at the University of Iowa found that for both men and women, the loss of virginity before age 18 was correlated with a greater number of occurrences of divorce within the first 10 years of marriage when compared to women who began sexually active in their early 20s. Girls who initiated sexual activity at ages 13 or 14, good God, were less than half as likely to be in stable marriages in their 30s. No shit. That's crazy. Okay, let's get back to the debate or the crucible as we talk about it here with Andrew. Keep going.
Majority. 80 is not that great for a contractual agreement, but better than
better than a business agreement. Sure. Better than business agreements. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And as far as partnership agreements go, when you have like all sorts of contractual conditions, I think that he said that those fail around 40. It's like a 40% failure, right? So it's
I don't know. That seems suspect. Once again, Andrew's tough because he's so sure about what he says. And as we've shown here, it's not always right. So it's a little tough. Is that the case? I don't know. I know that prenuptial agreements, if done correctly and you drafting them out with a good attorney, me, then yes, they're like
it's even higher. So it's like, it seems like the best advantage that you would have then to offset this would be for both you and the wife to just sign a prenup and then have a backyard wedding, call yourself married, and be done with the whole thing.
Well, look, to be clear here, I don't like if somebody just did that and had a backyard wedding and declared themselves married, I wouldn't feel like I'm any more married than they are because I have a state like, certificate or whatever. Sure. I just, my thing is that if there was anyone So by the way, I should also probably just full disclosure, I should mention this. I didn't really have any money when I got married. I just started making money when I first started dating my wife, like a little bit of money. And
I started making a lot of debt right around that time when I got married.
She was totally in love with me, but had nothing to do with the money. And I've made a decent amount since we've been married. But so a prenup wouldn't have even like been necessary in my situation. But even for friends.
So I'm curious about this with Dave. Okay, your wife is staying home, taking care of the kids, but for you wanting this lifestyle, and I don't know how I feel about this, but for you wanting this lifestyle, his wife, who did stuff in podcasting, and she was pretty big up there as far as producing and kind of being sidekick to stuff. She could still be doing that as well. Okay, she wants this life. You want this life, but you're married, and so this is the way it is. Does she deserve to have a stake in your house? That all the paychecks you get that you put into the mortgage, does she deserve to have that? If something were to go wrong, let's say you had a moment of weakness, Dave, you're out on the road and you bang someone with Rob, or maybe you and Rob have a little tryst, and she finds out about it and she's like, I'm out. Does she deserve that? Or is that just the odds are now, you know, the rules are against me because but maybe, I don't know, this is the lifestyle. I mean, I'm thinking to hear myself with my wife and I, you know, we're building everything together. It is a plan, but anyway, it's just it's a thought out there. I know that's the way that the law is kind of gamed. And I understand how people don't like that. But once again, if you had a prenuptial agreement, that would be pretty brutal on his wife, right?
Friends of mine who I know who are like single now who have money. If they were like, hey, I'm marrying a chick, but I feel like I got to get her to sign a prenup, my instinct on that is already to be kind of like, dude, if you're even a little bit concerned that she might try to leave you and take your money, just don't marry this chick.
That's such a weird position to say on the one hand that the state is super coercive and biased towards men when it comes to this institution of marriage, but at the same time, don't combat the state by doing a private contract. That seems totally counterintuitive to your position.
Well, to be clear, no, I don't think it is.
Let's answer some questions, but I don't know that you're combating the state at all, because you're just probably going to screw yourself in the long run. Okay, we got some comments here. Sorry, I missed a bunch here. I was divorced in 2012, moved back in 2019, never remarried. Where do I stand? Okay, well, I don't know. Baby mamas and jail escapes is the way I meant often. Let's see. Grazie to Andrew for turning me into this channel. Yeah, thank you for coming here, Dark Hideous. Men should have default 100% custody. By the way, that's a good point. I think so. And then I don't. I've had clients that are pieces of shit on both sides. And, you know, I'll tell you this straight up. I've had many a case where I win with the dad has, you know, sole custody, and we continue to have that until mom gets her shit together. And even then, it's not really happening. And then the other side too. So I feel like, you know, I'm in California and maybe it's different here, but I really do feel that for the most part, if you have your shit together, I've talked about this ad nauseum, of other parties getting their shit together and being able to turn their lives around for their kids. I'll say there's two types of custody here in most states. There's temporary and then there's permanent, okay? Temporary means that you can come back at any time until the kid's 18 and out of high school and modify the order, okay? You don't have custody now, you get it later, it takes away. So it's kind of a pain because it can be moderate. You know, people that are really litigious, you're doing this quite often. But that's just almost invariably, almost every court will do temporary. Oh, we got a cat here, baby kitten, and it's new and it's jumping up on my lap. Almost every court is going to be doing temporary ones. There are some that will do permanent, and you've got to do some really wild shit to get permanent custody either taken away or for you from the other party. I've seen it a few times, and it's very hard to get it removed. But anyway, I love kids. They can be little shits, but still do. Okay. You guys are talking about Nick and not watching him anymore. Okay. I'm being with you. I've seen that. Yeah. So Nick Ricada, he's doing stuff in a hot tub, and I know those clips out there. I'm just not. I'm waiting for documents to drop. If documents drop, by the way, follow me on Twitter at Tyler Yonke, or send us a message. If you see them dropping, let me know. We'll do definitely a show here. This guy has zero understanding on prenuptial agreements actually work. Not Tyler, Andrew Wilson. Yeah. I mean, you know, kind of, right? I'm 67. This is irrelevant to me. Okay. Because Andrew Wilson was slightly less retarded than Dave Smith. Yeah. Let's keep going here. Why judges do not look favorably upon prenups. Okay. I haven't had too many problems here in California. And typically what I say is if they have a prenup and they're going through a divorce, maybe I didn't do the prenup and now they're coming to me. I take a look at this prenup and I see how solid it is. And then I try to give them the understanding of it's going to be difficult to kind of break through this. Okay. Let's go see more here. When I divorced in 2012, she didn't fight it. I gave her half of my home for 2 years child support. Okay, that's interesting. Wait, Tyler is married? I definitely am. I was married in 12 years. Yeah. First marriage, 10 years. Second, 12 so far. And we're going to keep going. I kept my retirement, personal belongings in a boat and hauled ass. There you go. You got to commit to your argument. She has to understand she's okay. Favorite reason for divorce is irreconcilable differences. That's what we always put on there. There's many options on there, and irreconcilable differences is just the idea of it's in no fault states, which I think they all are now, which is just we can't get along. Okay. This is a good one. Did she add any value to that? I think you're talking about Dave Smith when I said about his wife. Yeah. Questions that did she answer? Yes. Did she add value? And that's the court. And by the way, if you're married, the presumption is that she added value. Now, there are ways to go about this. If you have a business and you're married, it's presumed, and I fully understand and believe this, which is I'm married. I'm more successful. I'm not chasing tail. I've got a wife. She helps me. Just the fact that I'm married to her, it makes me more successful. I know that, and I believe that. Now, I've had cases there where parties are going out and gambling, their community assets away. What's interesting about gambling, as an example, it gets used against you or for you. So in other words, if you make money gambling, it gets to count as income for support. If you lost money gambling, it's all on you, because they're saying that did not benefit the community at all. What is the kitten's name? We don't know. We just literally got it. And so I don't know what we've introduced her to our dogs, and one dog is really good with her. So we'll see. It's going to be a problem. Anyway, let's continue this on. We're almost done here, people. Thanks for hanging in. Hour 15, we're almost done.
I'm not saying that there's something evil about a prenup, and I'm not saying that like that. What I'm saying is that on an individual basis, if you are marrying someone and you feel like there's a decent chance that they may take advantage of the state's fucked up rules, that's probably not someone you should be marrying. Does that make
no, I
sense?
don't. Not really. So, I mean, because here's the thing, because all you're doing then, I think you're feeding into the gynocentrism of the man takes all the risk. You don't take any fucking risk, right? The state is going to side on behalf of. So here's the thing. You can agree with me that you can be with the perfect woman. You can be madly in love with her. You know, in your heart of hearts, she's in love with you. And in 6 years, she leaves your ass. It can happen. Right. There's not. And the thing is you've known guys this has happened to. I've known guys that this has happened to. It happens to good.
And by the way, I will say this as someone who, once again, divorced and then I don't care. It was 99% her fault. Totally. But even with that in mind, if you don't change some things about yourself for the next time, it's going to be the exact same result. We see that so many statistics there of second marriages to fail, third marriages on it. That's just people who can't get it at all right. And they're just like, well, this person, that's the difference. Now, yes, a person can make a difference, but you've got to make a difference in your own life. You can change, and it's imperative that you do. And it's imperative that you make sure you understand what you're getting into before you even do it. So Dave's partially right, but those Andrew,
sometimes it's just a switch is flipped. But so why would you ever give them the advice? So why would you ever give them the advice then, knowing that the laws of the state are going to fall to the woman, to tell men not to get a prenup? That's crazy.
Well, to be clear, my advice wasn't that you should marry this chick anyway without it. I go, if there's a concern about that, my advice was don't marry this chick. But to say, I actually don't agree that there's like these relationships that were perfect and you were totally right, and then a flip switched and she became this cold-hearted bitch who would ruin your entire life. I think there were probably many red flags that you were ignoring all throughout that.
Look, I agree. You know, love is blind, as they say, and the truth.
Okay, let me see. If a prenup is brutal towards the woman, the judge will just throw it out. No. He will only throw it out if it's against public policy, okay? So, because you've decided before you got into this, post-nups agreements as well, I've done those where they're already married and now they want to, once again, do this whole thing. You've bargained for. Now, what has to happen with both of these is they have to have full disclosure. You have to exchange your finances with each other to a pretty good extent. Okay, because that's typically what you're really talking about. So you have to show your pay stubs, your bank accounts, all your statements, and you transfer those back and forth again. And we have that as a disclaimer in there. Ones that if you're worried at all, we make sure that both parties have counsel, and then notarizing these things. They're good at, and they can be brutal to her. The only way it's not going to work is if that brutality is that you beat the shit out of her, and then you don't get a benefit from these kind of things. So. Or, she's disabled, or you're trying to make policy. And typically these are severable, which what that means is if one part of the agreement is determined to be not valid, it can't hold up mustard in court, the whole contract isn't thrown out. It's just that portion. Okay, let's get through this shit here.
The matter is I've seen a lot of dudes go into some relationships with some chicks where I'm like, what are you, fucking retarded? But the thing is, yeah, they are being stupid because love is blind.
Okay, so then my advice would be don't be stupid.
But the thing is like to kind of the kind of point like, no, I'm kind of a threshold above. I have so much trust, and my wife has so much trust that we don't even care. I never even have to worry about it. It's like, okay, maybe, I guess. But I think for the vast, overwhelming majority of men, that is not going to be the case. And the numbers seem to bear out that that's not going to be the case. So advising men in modernity, especially, look, man, if you're going to get married, one, you probably shouldn't involve the state and you should have a covenant marriage. And two, you probably should have a prenup. And the thing is a lot of times churches will advise against prenups. And I say I would still get a prenup because they're not with the times. They don't really understand how bad it is out there. I would still get one.
Is a prenup for men who are coming
I want to know if Andrew got one.
in with like huge sums of money?
No, with no money. The thing is men often will make their money while they're married. Okay. Mm-hmm. And then women will take that. What the prenup is there for is just to equalize the rules, right? So here you are, you're saying, man, the state, the big, massive government apparatus came in, fucked the whole thing up, made it gynocentric, made sure all the laws defer to women. And all that's true. It is. So if you have this offset that we can give, some kind of offset to men to kind of equal the playing field or make it even, since the woman.
I mean, yes and no. What if your wife makes more than you? Does that mean that the playing field is now gynocentric?
His ass is already covered by default. Why wouldn't we cover theirs?
All right, listen, you are making a very strong libertarian argument for prenuptial agreements, but I would just say that my advice, in the same sense that you can have pattern recognition and recognize things in broad swaths, but then you can also like judge things on an individual basis. I would say that I think that the person you're marrying, if you're actually doing your job as a man and you're being a man and being the leader of your household, I actually don't think that's something you really have to worry about. I think if you do your job, I think most of the time when these women like leave and take everything, it is in part at least because the man was not being the man of that household. So maybe that's what's skewing me a little bit. All right, guys, let's take a moment and thank our sponsor for today.
Okay, so the question you have there is, if that's the case, Dave, if the guy's not being the man of the household and then she decides to leave,
how to open
does she actually deserve something from you then? I mean, it sounds like to me you didn't hold up your bargain. Sorry, we're going to get through this. I should have downloaded it. Okay, let's finish this off and then we'll be done and we'll go home.
Was going to cancel out the fucked up like the fucked up like putting their thumb on the scale that the state does. I get your point. Perhaps that is benefit. Perhaps on a large scale that would be more totally beneficial than more beneficial than not. Perhaps you're right.
About that. So that's, as I look at these dynamics, right, and in modernity especially, okay, to me the language of a prenuptial agreement, when I was growing up, I thought that was for like, rich fucking football players and shit. You know what I mean? And it was just kind of known that they're marrying a hot 19-year-old when they're moving into their 35-year-old retirement or whatever. And that chick is basically just there for money. And we know that she's just there for money. But now it's become a survival mechanism. Now it's become a mechanism for actually combating this kind of gynocentrism, which is seeped into the law. And the truth is we can have good, astute marriage laws and good enforcement of marriage laws, which are fair and unbiased, but we don't. And the reason that we don't is because I believe that the attack on marriage specifically is a feminist response to patriarchy. Marriage is always the man is the head. This has always been the religious connotation from it. Doesn't matter what religion, at least in the Abrahamic ones. Maybe some of the other ones no, but the Abrahamic ones, still, if you're Jewish or you're Muslim or you're Christian, the Orthodox Jews even believe the man is the head of the relationship, the head of the household, right? And so the reason feminists hate Christianity especially so much is because of the view that Christianity is a patriarchal religion, because it is, and therefore the marriages are going to be patriarchal, and they are, and they're supposed to be. That's this kind of natural order that you're moving towards, and they hate it. And so this massive attack on the institution of family is the removal of that patriarchal head. That's why every dynamic is shown except that one.
Yeah. Well, do you think there's something to, and this is maybe to move the conversation a little bit more broader, but don't you think there's something toward something about, say, like the feminists who are like hate marriage so much, and the fact that, say, they're largely backed by the political class? I mean, certainly forget even getting into like, you know, the feminist movement being created and funded by the CIA or stuff like that, which is an interesting topic if you want to talk about that. I know your wife wrote a book on that.
Okay, so I think we're done there. And so, because probably my cat's farting, but interesting point there. He talks about patriarchy, and patriarchy may be how you structure. I mean, I think in his view, you structure your family, right? The husband's at the head of the house, and da 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 da. But his wife's writing books. If she's writing books, and let's say she's making more than he can do in a podcast, are the laws going to benefit her? I mean, because if he's in California and now they get divorced, or she wants to leave, that's half his money. Matter of fact, he may be getting residuals over and over and over. She's got to buy him out for her business if she's really making the money. So the patriarchy, or the head of the household, does not necessarily mean who is making the money in the family. I think it should always, it's more likely that the guy is, because that's just the way we're wired, and it's a little bit easier. But let's say you happen to marry a doctor. Okay. My nephew just married a girl. She's just graduated from she's a doctor, and she just graduated from school, and she's going to be making maybe more money than he is. Okay. Quite a bit. What does that do? Does it mean that he's still not the spiritual head of that family? No, he still is going to be. And so, you know, there's different structures you can do. The money might be one thing. Maybe it's on, maybe it's off, because she's taking some time out, whatever. Okay. Darth Hideous had some other ones. He said, the scenarios are far more nuanced than Dave and Andrew can cover. Yeah, I would like to ask more questions on this topic. Absolutely. Gynocentrism has been steeped into law since 1920, at least in United States. Absolutely. Andy says, hey, Tyler. All right. She gonna divorce him. Is what that actually means. Yeah. How late am I? An hour and a half. There you go. I'm just finishing, as a matter of fact. So there you go. So look, I don't think that, I thought the conversation was good. I thought the two of them had a lot of good stuff to push back and before there. The problem I have, and you know, Andrew, decent guy. It seemed like he had some quality stuff there. Once again, maybe this works online, which is let's say he goes into court and he's this positive about arguments, but he's wrong. That's not going to go well, which is where I'm at. So I always like to try to at least get to me, or Dave, when he's doing debates on Israel and stuff, he knows that well. You guys are not that great on this subject. You're good. You kind of know the ideas of what you want, but you've also been swindled some, I think, with the male-centric idea that guys just get the shit in court. And I think the problem with that, I've talked about it over and over, which is then men think that they don't have to try as hard, and then they do shit, and then they lose in court, and then they complain that it was for reasons that you don't think it is, and it's just not possible. So there you go. Hannah Fornstein says, I'm a Christian egalitarian, which rejects headship in preference for mutual submission, as Ephesians states. Okay. I think it all depends. Dave stunk when they had their debate. Did he? Okay. That's interesting. Tyler, I'd like to ask you more pointed questions on the topic. I don't know. I know you don't know me. I don't, but I think we could have a great show. Okay. Well, tell you what, you DM me and we'll have a discussion about this. Maybe you could come on here and we can have that. Depends. I don't want to, you have different people on, and they're like, Dickie, I bring Dickie on and he can't get his fucking computer working. He's wearing a headset. His audio's horrible. These are all things that make a difference, and I don't know you, but check me. Go ahead and hit me up on a DM. We'll talk. There's no mutual submission in Ephesians, Hannah. Okay. You guys fight that out. I don't know how you are. I know this. I don't know if it's mutual. My wife expects me to be a certain type of person, and I work on it all the time. Okay. I'm not always the best at it. I like to be comedy. I like to do certain things. Sometimes it takes a little bit for me to be, I'm the man of the house, but I'm also to do sometimes you're where you are. She could be bossy. but she's also great. She likes our roles, right? And I think they're good roles. So it's important that you have a spouse that you can, by the way, we do things. She loves to cook. She does that. I'll do the dishes. I don't give a shit. I also do the laundry. I do my own laundry. That's just one thing. I do the ironing too, because no one can do it as good as I can. I do my own show, dude. Oh, well then please hit me up. Let's talk about it. Tyler, I'd like to ask you more retarded questions. You know me, but I think we could have another awful show anytime. This Christian, okay. I don't know. You guys can argue in there about some of these things. I think this was a decent show. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And, we can go on from there. What else I got coming up? I don't know what we have next week. Maybe we'll break into some of the legal stuff. I'm sorry, Darth, there. If I didn't know you had a show, I apologize. So once again, DM me on Twitter. It's just my Tyler Yankee, Tyler Janke. And we go from there. You too, Alan. We'll do a show as well. Dave sucks in debates. He's just usually against absolute tards. By the way, Dave was pretty good in a few debates there, Lincoln. I will say a few of them. You're gay. Why didn't you call me? Okay, I'll give you a call here as soon as I'm done. Okay, you guys can argue about the Christian stuff. I don't really care. Kind of like Andrew's some of the stuff here. I don't care. Like he talks about some of these trash women. I don't care. I don't follow these people online. I block them excessively and obsessively. I just do. Incessantly. I block them. I don't want to listen to any of them. I don't have anything to do with it. The new Hawk Tua girl comes out, blocked. That other right-wing N-word chick, blocked. It's not worth my time. So bye y'all, and we will see you next one. Have a great weekend. It's blazing. It's like 112 here in California. I'm looking for spring to sometime happen. And here we go. Here's a cat. Damn thing is I got figure out what the fuck's going on. All right, everybody, have a good weekend. See ya till next time.
Okay, I'm leaving now. Bye, guys.
But she's back.
And now.
Chick-fil-A is completely overrated. It's not that good. I prefer Zaxby's. I prefer Popeyes.
Takes a tough man to make a tender forecast, Nick. I guess that's me. Keep fucking that chicken.
Should I vote for Dick Cheney on the Libertarian Party? Do I have an obligation to vote for Dick Cheney?
I would say so.
Yes.
Did it work for those people?
No, it never does. I mean, these people somehow delude themselves into thinking it might, but it might work for us.
That one dude was like, not a podcast. I can't find it anywhere. They don't have video.
Oh, yeah, Peter Janke. Yeah.
Yeah, I blocked him.
I'll do it. If he unblocks me, I'll...
He'll buy your shirt if you unblock him, Bert.
He's a wigger.
Yeah, nothing cooler than a 49-year-old wigger.
Like,
I just started live streaming. Cut me some slack. I'm pretty high tech for a boomer. But anyways,
boomer.